Hello, my name's Jim Metcalfe. Thanks for inviting me to your community. I'm very flattered to be invited. I thought I'd talk about some of the macro cameras that I've developed over the years. So I'll show what the cameras look like and a few example images from each one. And I'll also show you some pictures of the tiny studio that I'm using to construct some of these images. I think you'll laugh when you see them. Okay, so there's only 4 cameras to show you, so let's start with this one, which is my first macro camera. So as you can see here, there's 2 compact Canon cameras. There's one on the top and one on the side, at the back. And there's also along here, you can see a half silvered mirror at 45 degrees. So what happens is the top camera looks down, reflects off the mirror and looks out the front, and the back camera just looks straight through the mirror. So they're aligned in that direction. And if you look from here, you can see that there's an offset between the left camera and the right camera. In this case, it's about a 10mm stereo base, and that's what you need in macro. You need to get the lenses very close together. So this half silvered mirror allows us to get the lenses basically overlapping. There's not much else to show here. There's a little button to fire both shutters at the same time. A little battery pack here. This is just for some extra lighting that I added there. That was an experiment that didn't really work. But that's about it. So what we've got here is, along the top I've got a stereo view of the camera. So if you've got a suitable viewer, you can see what it looks like in 3D. And then at the bottom on the left, I've got just a little index to show you which camera we're talking about. And I'll bump that as we move along. Okay, so this is just the view from the front. And in this case, you can see that the lenses are out, so you can see that they're overlapped by about 5mm in this case. And this is just another view where I tried a different lighting solution. Yeah, that didn't really work, but I was just experimenting to find out to what extent LED lighting can help. So let's move on to some example images. This is an ant colony I found in the backyard. It's one of the first subjects I tried with this camera. Same ant colony. You can see it's a bit grainy. I found it quite difficult to get enough light because I like to get very close to the subject. And the camera itself tends to block out the light, so lighting, I quickly learnt that was a bit of an issue. Here's a picture of some grubs on their way to somewhere in force. Some flowers and a spider and a bee. I try to get pictures with like 2 things, a flower and a bee, or a flower and a spider, or in this case a spider and another bug, just to add some interest. This is a bunch of bugs eating something. I like this one because it's like 2 different greens, and it sort of, with the stereo, it sort of, allows you to see what would otherwise be kind of camouflaged. It also shows some of the difficulty of macro, and basically the 2 things. There's like obviously the depth of field is really short, so not much is in focus, which is a problem because in stereo we like to see everything in the scene, not just the subject. And the other problem is that it can be quite difficult to get the right thing in focus, particularly as the subject might be a bit to the left or a bit to the right on each camera. So it's a bit hit and miss as to whether both cameras are focusing on the same thing. So that can be frustrating. Here's a picture of a giant spider that I found in the kid's bike helmet. This is a water dragon lizard. All of these in my backyard. This is a kookaburra, a bird local to Australia. Okay, so let's move on to the next camera. So this is the one we were just looking at, and this is the next one. So you can see it's obviously quite a bit bigger. This one uses the Canon G11 cameras. These are kind of a prosumer between compact and a SLR. So lenses are quite a bit bigger, more glass, so much better in low light. But you can see the same basic constructions. You've got the camera on the top, camera on the back, a mirror at 45 degrees down here. One difference here, I added some lighting. So there's LED strips along the top and down the sides. And I'll just turn them on to give you an idea. So you can turn them on individually or both together. And it's really quite bright, and it's pretty good diffuse light, so it's good for subjects that are just a few centimetres away. Other than that, pretty much the same construction. So let's go to some stereo views. Okay, so there's the camera in stereo. And here's some sample images. So here's some orchids. It's my neighbour's backyard, not mine. I wish. Okay, flowers, a frog. Yeah, this is from a trip to Fiji. This is a picture of a crab coming out of a shell. And the shell was probably only a couple of centimetres across, so yeah, definitely need a macro camera for this one. More flowers. So basically this camera's much better in terms of the image quality, better lighting. Another really good thing about this camera is that you can control where the center focus point is. So when it's focusing, it's much less hit and miss, because you can offset the target and get a better chance when of getting both left and right in focus. So lots of flowers, and this is probably more, I would say, close up rather than macro, but you can certainly change the baseline of the cameras, and anything from 0 up to about 40 millimeters. And this is actually the inside of a Fujifilm W3 camera, which I took apart. Actually, I never put it back together, which is a bit silly. This was a bit different. This is that's the camera in the foreground, and in this case, I was using an extra module to fire the shutter when there's a sound. So in this case, I set it up to take the photo when a dart hit the dartboard after going through a balloon. So this is the shot that I got from that one. Yeah, that worked. Okay, so let's move on to the next camera. So let me just grab that. Now this one was just an experiment, to be honest, and it was a bit of a fail, but I'll mention it briefly anyway, because this one doesn't use a half silver mirror, but it uses a Raspberry Pi computer. It actually uses two, it's sort of disassembled here, but the basic idea was you got a small LCD screen for each Raspberry Pi, and the camera's on this sort of separate module. And the idea was that you could get in close to a target and to a subject and try and get pictures you couldn't otherwise get. And the Raspberry Pi computers are in here, so there's just one for each sensor. So this was a bit of an experiment, but yeah, to be honest, it didn't really work. So I won't spend too long on this one. Here's a stereo view of the camera when it was operational. So you can see the two sensors very close together. They're about 10 millimeters apart, which is, I found frustrating, too much in many situations. So here's another view, and here's a close-up of the head with the two sensors. And here's some images. So this is one of the first images. You might recognise the background there. So that's just from the desk where I was working. And this is a picture from the inside of a bird cage. That's fairly difficult normally. This is a garden gnome looking up from his feet. So again, just trying to utilise the fact that I had a small sensor head, so you could get into places you would otherwise be difficult. Picture of a flower. You can see the background's pretty soft. The camera's not, even the subject's not perfectly sharp, and this was because the sensors are fixed focus. So yeah, not ideal. And here's a view of an old stereoscope. Okay. Okay, and here's a view of a cockatoo, another Australian bird, having a bite to eat. Okay, let's move on to the final camera. So this is the one I'm still using today. So as you can see, it's it's not in a complete state. I never really finished it, but it's similar to the first two cameras in that it uses a half silvered mirror, but it's quite a bit smaller. In this case, you can just make out a mirror up here at 45 degrees. And if you look closely inside, you can see there's one sensor here, and there's another sensor up the back there. And there's also you can see, just make out a worm drive, a bar along the middle there, and there's a motor which to change the spacing. So you can change the spacing electronically. I use the same sort of lighting idea on the sides. Again, two Raspberry Pi computers in here, one there and one there. There's a little display on the back, this is really mainly for debugging. Little stick for moving the camera spacing. And an LCD display on the top, just the one, because I found that really you just need one. It's only 2D, but the second display I had in the previous camera wasn't really useful. You can change the angle of the display, and there's various sort of power supplies and whatnot. There's also a bunch of buttons. So this is the fire, the shutter button, and there's exposure buttons and focus, that kind of thing. So I originally intended this as actually the original idea was that I would sort of compose the shot and then say, work out what the ideal spacing would be, and then the software would adjust the the spacing between the sensors according to the scene. And I did some outdoor work with it, but yeah, it wasn't great. I mean, the focus is too slow because it's all done in software, and there was some other problems. But what I found it was really good for is studio work, and the reason is that these camera sensors have focus control. So under software control, I can change the focus pointers and take photos at at a number of different focal lengths, and then combine them when they're back on the host computer. And in similar fashion, I can do HDR by doing different exposures and automating all that. And I found that as long as the subject is still, then the focus stacking, the automatic HDR, makes a huge difference. So I found this camera really effective. Okay, so let's move on to some images from this camera. Firstly, some images of this camera. Okay, so this is just some different angles. So this is a close-up of looking straight into the front of the camera. So you can see the two sensors superimposed. And here I've just moved one by 2 or 3 millimeters, which I found I use quite commonly. And this is with a couple of centimeters. So that just gives you an idea of the variable camera spacing. Here's an image with the user interface showing. There's a number of buttons down the left and right hand side of the screen. It's a touch sensitive screen, so you can control various aspects. In this case, you can control the number of sweep steps. So you just touch it on the number of steps you'd like to have. Similarly for HDR, you can control how many HDR steps. And then you can also operate it remotely because it has Wi-Fi to each of the Raspberry Pis, and then you can upload all the images in one go from your PC. Okay, so sample images. This is one of the first photos from an early prototype of this camera, and yeah, this one was really successful. Won several medals and awards in PSA exhibitions. And I guess the key point of this is the focus stacking. So yeah, this is probably a dozen different focus depths, and managed to keep both the foreground and the background all in focus. There's a bunch of cicada shells. It's a flower that is staged in the studio. Another flower. The great thing about this photo is the lighting. So you can see all the texture on the petals there. That's achieved by precise control of the angle of the lighting, various lighting sources to make it look like it's kind of glowing. It's a hibiscus. So the idea of this one was the present and past versions of the same plant. This is a photo of a hard disk drive. The image of the circuit board is actually just a circuit board which is held above the hard disk, and it's reflecting off the surface of the hard disk, which is obviously very shiny. It's a cicada. More flowers. These are all in my tiny studio. This this flower is actually only about 1 centimetre across, so it's surprising. This is probably one of my most successful images. I think this got 3 gold medals in PSA exhibitions. Again, a studio shot. Another cicada. It's a little gecko. Flowers. It's more of your still life style. There's a feather on some leaves. More still life. This is one of these G11 cameras that I showed you earlier with the front cover taken off, just to add some interest. Same camera. So a close-up of a beetle on some crystals. And this is my favourite image. This is just 3 feathers arranged on a mirror in the studio. Some wattle. And a flower. This one's coming through the window a fair way. Okay, so now I thought we'd go to the some pictures of the studio. So this is it's actually just like a cupboard under the stairs in my place, and it's kind of where all my tools are kept, and power supplies and battery chargers and all that kind of thing. But in the middle there, you can see there's a camera. In this case, I was using an iPhone, and some lighting, and really the lighting is the trick. So here's another view with the latest camera, and you can see on both the left and right hand side there's some LED lighting on strips. They're on like a flexible gooseneck mount. And that allows me to move the light source around in different angles and positions. In the foreground, you might just be able to make out as another, like a little spotlight, which is held in position from a clamp. And really, this makes a huge difference in the construction of a scene, having that lighting flexibility. So this is a close-up of the same scene, and this is just the same thing from the side. And this is just another view of a different scene under construction. So this was one of the pictures I showed earlier. Different lighting sources. And this is the construction of the wattle image that I showed a little bit earlier. So you can see down the bottom there's a little spotlight shining straight up. It's also using some of the LED strip lights on the sides, and also using, you can see some blue gooseneck lighting, and these ones allow me to change the colour of the light source as well. So really, this is I've found really the trick between a good macro image and a great macro image is being able to control the lighting. Combine that with the focus stacking and the HDR stacking. Really makes a difference. That to go from sort of to get that last 5 or 10% improvement, you really need the lighting and the stacking. Anyway, that's my story. So I hope you got something out of that. I've certainly enjoyed the journey in constructing these cameras. So I've learned a lot, and I hope you got something out of that. So thanks for your attention.